When making sauerkraut, it is always best to use the freshest ingredients. Obtain fresh heads of cabbage and remove the outer leaves and any other compromised portions. Thoroughly wash each head of cabbage and then set aside to allow them to drain. Remove the core and then cut the heads into smaller wedges for easy handling and shredding. Once the cabbage has been cut and the core removed, it'll then be ready to shred. Shred the cabbage into thin slices. I use an old manual shredder, but a shredder plate on a food processor will also work. Once shredded, you will need to weigh the cabbage. The ratio of salt to cabbage is 3 tablespoons of pure granulated salt for 5 pounds of cabbage. I have around 15 pounds of cabbage, so I will use 9 tablespoons of salt. In a large bin, mix the salt thoroughly with the cabbage. I recommend having 2 people for this, 1 person to mix the cabbage and 1 person to slowly add the salt. Once mixed, allow to sit and wilt for 3 minutes. Obtain a crock that has been thoroughly cleaned and dried. Add the shredded cabbage to the crock and begin mixing and pressing down repeatedly. As you do this, the water in the cabbage will be drawn out and the cabbage will eventually be submerged in the liquid. Continue mixing and pressing until the cabbage is well beneath the surface of the liquid. You will now want to keep the cabbage packed below the liquid. In order to do this, you will need to place a heavy object on the cabbage to keep it under. Most people use a plate. However, I made my own out of a cutting board to custom fit my crock. Give the plate one final press and place a clean food-grade weight on the plate. I use a clean mason jar filled with water. Set the crock in a cool area of the house. Cover the crock with a cloth. I put mine in the basement in a low-activity environment. Note that the perfect temperature for fermenting kraut is 68 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Next, you will need to check the contents every day. On about the 3rd day, you will start seeing some bubbles. This is expected. These are gas bubbles indicating fermentation. Once again, check the contents every day. You will eventually find some scum floating on the top. This is called the bloom. This is also normal and will need to be skimmed off on a daily basis. Continue checking and skimming for 2 months. The kraut will be done fermenting by then and can now be left in the crock or be canned. The kraut has now finished fermenting. I'm going to show the canning process. The canning process will kill the beneficial bacteria, but will make preserving and maintenance a lot easier. I have done both, and I prefer to can my kraut. Remove the plate and inspect the kraut. There should be no mold and should have a good flavor. Next, transfer the kraut to a stock pot. Next, set your canning station up with rings and lids, lid simmer pot, and a water bath canner. Place the lids in a pot of water and bring to a simmer. Then start bringing the water bath canner to a boil. In the meantime, bring the stock pot of kraut to a simmer as well. Stir the kraut thoroughly along the way. Using hot sterile jars, fill and pack the kraut into the jars, leaving a small headspace. Using a knife or a flat object, release any air bubbles around the perimeter of the jar. Making sure the jar's rim is clean, place a hot lid and secure it with a ring. Continue to fill the jars and place them in the water bath. Once the water is boiling, process pints for 15 minutes. If you're using quarts, process for 20 minutes. When done processing, Remove the jars from the water bath and set them on a towel to cool for at least 12 hours.